So I'm Stephen Salaita. I am a professor in English and Comparative Literature. This is the department that organizes and hosts the Madalyn Lamont Award, which is an annual creative writing competition. 1 year it's in Arabic, 1 year it is in English. This year it was in English, so next year it will be in Arabic. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to see everybody and to host everybody. Really, I think the Lamont Award, the Madalyn Lamont Award, is really one of the signature events of ECLT and HUS, the Humanities and Social Sciences College, more broadly. We received a lot of submissions across genres. There were screenplays, there were plays, poetry, fiction, some nonfiction as well, and the judges had a tough time really narrowing it down to only 3 winners when there were so many more who were deserving, and so it was a very tough but extremely satisfying responsibility. I headed up the jury this year for the award, and I did it along with 2 colleagues, neither of whom could be here this afternoon because they are both abroad. But I'm going to introduce them anyway so we can recognize their work. One is Dr. Mona Ahmed, and she is a professor of psychology here at AUC, and in fact a former winner as a student of the Madalyn Lamont Award. And we were also joined by Richard Hoth, who is a senior instructor of rhetoric and composition here at AUC. And Richard writes extensively about Egypt and the natural environment and documenting a lot of the flora and fauna here in Egypt. And I wanted to thank really quickly Naya Ali for all of her help, and Professor Fidel Ghazul for all of her help. This is my first time doing the Lamont Award, and they were oh my gosh!
I was looking for the other room.
Yeah. Oh my God! There were rumors that you were abroad.
No, I'm here.
Would you care to join us? We would. And this is one of the other judges, Professor. And as I noted, she is a former winner of the award. But I wanted to thank everybody for their help and for their advice and counsel. And Professor Mona was extremely helpful as well. She really ushered me through the process and deserves all of the credit for the award and the event coming together. So, the award is named after a long-time professor in ECLT at AUC, and in fact, really somebody who's considered the founder of the department. And Madalyn Lamont's association with Egypt and AUC began in 1966. She came to teach in the English Language Institute and met Thomas Lamont, the man who she was to marry a year later, after a period of teaching in Lone Tree, Iowa, and the birth of twin daughters. The Lamonts returned to AUC in 1972, where they remained for 9 years. This was a creative and fulfilling time for Marilyn, in which she taught composition in the freshman writing program and gave birth to their 3rd daughter in 1976. During these years, Madalyn made a lasting contribution to the social and intellectual life of the university community. She helped to organize an orientation program for new faculty about Egypt, a country she deeply loved. She also established a children's book collection at the library, instituted plays and celebrations for staff children, and encouraged a wide range of cultural activities on campus. Madalyn is remembered best, however, as a delightful and caring friend to many at AUC. Her special blend of generosity, warmth, and sharp wit was shared freely with others. In a more private form of expression, she wrote poems reflecting a love of life fully experienced. As a mother, wife, poet, and friend, Madalyn honored her commitment to strong, creative womanhood. She died in New York in 1982, following a courageous struggle with cancer. Here to help us honor the students and their creative efforts and the legacy of Madalyn Lamont is an honored guest, Randa Shaath, and we are extremely pleased and excited to have her with us. This is really a treat for us to learn more about her work. Randa is a photographer based in Cairo. She received her BA from AUC in Middle East Studies in 1986 and her MA from the University of Minnesota School of Journalism and Mass Communication in 1987. She is a trainer and mentor of award-winning photographers of AFAC's documentary photography program. She taught photography at AUC from 2015 to 2017. She was the photo editor of Al Shorouk daily newspaper in Egypt from 2008 until April 2014. She's worked as a photographer and graphic designer for children's books at Dara Fata Al Arabi 1987 to 1993, photographer for Al Ahram Weekly from 1994 to 2005, and served on the editorial board of Zawaya and Arts and Culture magazine. Her works exhibited in Egypt and abroad include the Photo Forum in Switzerland, Wit de Wit Art Center Holland, I completely butchered the pronunciation, Holland, the Foundation, Tabis, Barcelona, IFA Gallery, Germany, Noorderlicht Photo Festival, also in Holland, Aperture, and the International Center of Photography in New York. She represented Egypt at the Bienal de Sao Paulo in Brazil in 2006. She's published 3 monographs, Watani ala Marma Hagar in 1988, Misr Macedonia 1990, and Under the Same Sky in 2003. She published a memoir, Jabal al-Ramal, in 2019. Please join me in welcoming Randa.
Hello everybody. I would like to thank Professor Filial Razul and Dr. Steve Salaita for inviting me to speak at this award ceremony, and would like to express my appreciation to everyone who contributed to the establishment and continuation of the award in the name of Madalyn Lamont. Growing up with a strong mother and an eloquent father, I thought I was not able to express my ideas and convictions with words. Sometimes I resorted to crying and locking myself in my room. I decided to take photography as an alternative to expressing myself. My father had given me my first camera when I was 8. He himself always carried a camera with which he recorded our trips, birthdays, and special events. When I insisted at the beginning of my university studies to study photography, he convinced me that I should major first in something else other than photography, and that having a cultural and historical background was more important for a photographer than learning the techniques. He may have thought that postponing my decision might change my mind, but after I finished my studies in history and political science, he sponsored my travel to complete my graduate studies in visual mass communication. When I returned at the beginning of my work as a photographer, he was happy to accompany me on photography trips, driving the car and stopping at any place I specified, and waited for me until I was done. When he traveled abroad, he would bring me the chemicals and sensitive paper I needed for my work in the darkroom. Years later, he bought me my first digital camera. I carried my camera everywhere, depicting daily life. I have been always inspired by the details of daily life that all human beings have in common. I look for things that join them to one another and to me. I found in photography a haven closer to my nature to express my feelings and vision. My first job was at Dara Fata Al Arabi, a publishing house for children's books, as a graphic designer. I suggested a photo book on the Palestinian refugee camp I had helped as a student at AUC. The Canada camp, the only Palestinian refugee camp in Egypt at the border with Gaza. I spent a year living in the camp, letting the refugees guide me to places I had not photographed and pointing out important dimensions of their life. I spent a year between Rafah and Cairo photographing daily life there, go back to my dark room, then returning to the camp residents with pictures. I courteously brought back photos to gain their trust. Seeing my photos, they would guide me to people I still have to meet and more places to see, a key factor in completing the story. Watani ala Marma Hajar, My Homeland is But a Stone's Throw Away, was published in '88. I learned early on that sharing with the people I photographed gave depth and more understanding to their lives. In '92, I started working in Al Haram weekly newspaper as a full-time photographer. I was the only female photographer in the field. There were no schools offering a degree in photography. Should I turn off the lights?
Somebody's just, okay. Thank you.
I had no one to give me professional feedback. I was lucky to be working under the supervision of Mr. Hosni Ginti, the editor-in-chief, who was like a father to all journalists and employees. He had the extreme humility combined with high professionalism. He loved photos, encouraged me to come up with my own themes, and gave me time to work on them. Besides my assignment in documenting big national events like building the first metro or the 6th of October bridge, making portraits of prominent intellectual artists and scientists, I was able to start shooting more in-depth stories. Taking pictures helped me to get to know the world, people, and myself through their experiences and lives. I'm still learning. I draw strength from the resilience of those I photograph and their love for life. During my 10 years at Ahram Weekly, I decided to try working for a big news agency in parallel. The experience lasted no more than a year. Many of the assignments were formal conferences. For me, they were boring. I used to amuse myself by photographing the people outside the conference or my board colleagues. We were still in the era of analog photography, so I had to run to the office, develop the films, and scan them for sending. The agency assigned me an alarm device called beeper, which was to be stuck to my body day and night. So when it beeps, I had to call the agency to see what was going on and where my assignment was. It was all very tense. I learned a lot, but I knew from the beginning that the photography I love and what I want to do is not that of a fast news shot, but in the details. However, I had the greatest professional highlight. I covered the historical trip of President Arafat back to Palestine in '94 after 27 years of exile. The assignment was personally meaningful. I visited Gaza for the first time and witnessed the era of hopes of our independent state. In addition to the Arafat's great welcome, I took photos of daily life, of new buildings, and of aspirations rising. I'm interested in working on in-depth projects. I like to spend more time in a place with the people, with my topic, where I could learn something and try to show it in photos. I'm interested in human beings as individuals, part of the community, part of society. I photograph people I admire. I do not look for the exotic, the different. However, I focus on elements of everyday life, on those things that all human beings have in common. I explore the ways in which people survive and strategies they adopt to preserve their humanity, often under extreme circumstances. I am continually inspired by their resourcefulness and resilience. One of my projects was documenting daily life in the island of Ursaya. It was a joint project where artist Muhammad Abla drew sketches and I took photos. We exhibited together. While we were working together on the project in 2000, the island, suffering from the lack of clean drinking water, hospitals, or schools, was to become a hotel resort. The project was agreed upon as on paper there were no inhabitants. They were peasants and fishermen who never registered their lands and homes. We gathered signatures of people who have been living there for years as proof of their existence. And finally, the project got cancelled and the island proclaimed a nature reserve. Photography freezes moments in history and it documents lives of people, their clothes, their hairstyles, the architecture and road signs. It transmits the feelings, the aspirations, and the dreams of a certain moment. Imagination is based on conscious and unconscious memory. Memory lingers from the images that have come down to us in various ways. My grandfather's photo album made of leather and olive wood, with Made in Palestine engraved on its cover, was a gift from my grandfather's students in Amriya School in Yafa in '46. He filled its pages with family photos. These built my imagination, consciousness, and identity. Houses, cities perish, but the photographs remain, a basis for stories and memories. Memory is the basis for forming an identity. That is why enemies always try to erase our memory. I remember my friend Rami, my colleague at AUC, we met in the Friends of Jerusalem Club, where we organized exhibitions and lectures. Rami told me about his father's shop in the old city of Jerusalem, where reprints of old photos and manuscripts were available for sale. He always showed me photos, described Jerusalem, and the location of the shop near the Hebron Gate. For years, I dreamed of visiting. On my first visit to Palestine, many years later, friends who hosted me took me to a walk through the village roads. They pointed out how old houses and told me their history and the stories of the people who lived in them. The path winded as we approached the Hebron Gate. Suddenly, I flinched. I stood still, looking to the right. I told them, "Here is Abu Rami's shop." I left them and walked away like an enchanted person. They followed me. I walked with confidence and headed right. I arrived alone at the old shop. Rami was standing by the door. Al-Ahram Weekly Archive was removed from the net. We lost many of the people I portrayed. Many buildings I photographed are destroyed. Gaza as a city perished. We are living through changes and our collective memory is continuously rewritten into a reductive official story with a very different point of view. I'm currently working on my photo archive. I hope that others will use it, creating, recreating, and challenging collective memory with an alternative narrative using a particular reference to visual memory. I resist the photograph.
Thank you so much. The photography was beautiful, as was the text. We're grateful and we're gratified for you coming and sharing the stories and the accompanying photographs with us. It's really amazing. Thank you. And so now we move on to the celebration of the winners of the Madalyn Lamont Award. And I just want to say very briefly, so I can turn over the podium to them, that we had a lot of submissions, and there was a lot of excellent work being produced by our students at AUC across the majors. We had submissions from STEM and engineering majors. We had submissions from social scientists and submissions from those who were studying the humanities, and it was really arduous but wonderful experience reading them. But for me, speaking for myself, it was really a moment of hope reading through the submissions and seeing how young writers are really engaged with self-expression and aware of the importance of developing their ideas into literary projects. And it was a wonderful experience. And we did manage in the end to narrow it down to 3, and they're going to come up in turn and read a little bit from their submissions, or if the submission was short enough, the entire thing. And so the first place winner of the 2003 Madalyn Lamont Award is Jana Ahmed Bassam Kamal. And Jana is graduating senior in anthropology, and we have a certificate for you. I don't know if you want to take a picture.
short fiction piece that I wrote for my fiction writing course under the guidance of Dr. Noor Nagan a couple semesters ago. It's very short, so I'll read the whole thing. It's titled Portrait of a Man. Dust bunnies make their home on the dull handrail. Its wood rotten and unattended to. I find myself wiping it off with the end of my sleeve, trying to restore any semblance of order. But what is order without her iron fist? I fiddle with the ends of my hair, pull the curls down and watch them spring back into shape, the urge to tie them back unrelenting, pointless as it is now. He's always been oblivious to her bitter demands, the vicious gaze only her and I play. I wonder if the smell of burnt hair reminds him of her, but the thought dissipates when I hear his heavy footsteps. The metal walker creaks under his weight as he trudges through the hallway, and I'm reminded of the cruelty of life, all that it takes from us. The door grows open and I feel unprepared, her guiding presence a thing of the past. He greets me with a nod and I mimic him, not knowing how else to react. A puff of dust escapes the cushions as I take a seat on the gauzy couch. Entire Saturdays used to be dedicated to wiping it down. She'd hitch up the end of her dressing gown, kneel down on the freezing tile, and scrub the floral fabric for what seemed like hours. Later, she'd pick a CD from the wicker basket on the side table and softly sing along to 70s melodies I could not recognize as she massaged her hands with lavender lotion. I'd sit quietly on the carpet then, with a crisp apple in hand, watching her, marveling at her ability to shape shift. My hands pet that fabric now, and they stumble across a little cigarette burn. Not the first time she's turned in her grave, I suppose. He never lit a cigarette in front of her, would always retreat to the guest bathroom, chain smoking to drown out the sounds of her episodes, leaving me behind to lull and soothe. She'd sit me on her lap afterwards, my frame so minuscule in that imposing vanity mirror, and torch my curls with her prehistoric flat iron. I still flinch at the hairdresser, traumatized by the smell of smoke that used to fill up the room. I've never managed to remember what it is she used to tell me in front of that mirror, but I'd always leave the room grateful for her counsel, berating myself for ever questioning her intentions, for ever questioning her ability to love him. I watch as he chews little forkfuls of the lemon cake I picked up from her favorite bakery. His grunts of approval so genuine they embarrass me. A crust of flaky white icing forms around the corners of his mouth. My hands itch with the urge to wipe it off as she once did. Instead, I look away. He puts on the game and we sit there, nothing but strangers in her absence.
Thank you, Shannon. That was wonderful.
And our second place winner for the 2023 Madalyn Lamont Award is Amina Alonso, and Amina won for her poem called Meet Me, and she is a first semester graduate student in political science. Congratulations, Amina.
Meet me where we said, I do, dressed in our school uniforms, chasing after chubby honeybees. At night, fairy lights adoring the sky, wrapper of la vache qui rit as my wedding ring shined. The jasmine has dried on the patio where we hopped on one leg. The fairy lights have dimmed. So don't meet me. Let us stay there, playing in the light, where we bury our childhood treasure. Dearest London, when I laid my bare heart on your streets, I vowed I'll never call you mine. But your honey-roasted summers that seem to last but a day make the 12-month winter somehow worth all the pain. The way your Thames is brought back to life at the slightest glimmer of sun, resting on waves as they breathe in and out, slowly dulling into ripples. Your pulsating heart pumping blood into the Christmas markets at Trafalgar Square. Magicians in Piccadilly Station, Romanian travelers singing in train carriages, music fading into your watercolor sky. Please tell me now, how am I to say goodbye? Grandfather Angel, as we strolled through the honey-roasted boulevard, lemon rays sprinkled on my face. Daisy petals grew in my eyes, and 2 braids blossomed from my head as I swung from your Herculean arms. I always insisted on 1 scoop of Kinder, 1 scoop of hazelnut ice cream. When I got distracted by the boy looking like a proud father at his red lollipop, you stole a couple of flakes. And in the morning, I jumped onto your lap. Your heartbeat lulled me back to sleep as you gazed at me from under your spectacles, resting on your nose. Eros and Psyche, her hair, once a field of daffodils, now carefully assembled by saltworms. His steady war arm wrapped around her, growing frail as the sound of smiles fills the starvation in their lungs. Floral weed crawling its way through each rib, forming the shape of rings, wrapping around the bone. Roses growing from their mouths. Now lost somewhere in between different hospital beds and eternity, with memories carved on veins reaching into their hearts. That's the last one now. Reddick. Your eyes were a union of cherry blossoms, branches interlacing with flowers, budding in your iris. Every day you wrapped melted gypsophilias and gifted them to me when you smiled, creasing at the edges of your mouth. Now moss grows around you, populating the ends of your body. Granite molded around your figure, because you were standing at the edge of youth. Your hair resided on the corners of our sink, as you shaved every morning, sharpening the bushes of your beard. The scent of sandalwood diffusing from your skin, veiling the remains of tobacco on your shirt. But you were laying at the finish line of youth. Now I see the shadow of cherry blossoms in your eyes, the relic of your smile chiseled in my memory, as my fingers trace the initials on your grave.
Thank you, Amina.
It's lovely, thank you.
Then the third prize winner for the 2023 Madalyn Lamont Award is Maha Mule Hausler, and Maha is a ECLT and history major, and congratulations, Maha.
Hello everyone. So my submission was a short story that is entirely a dialogue. And because of its length, it's not super long, but I cannot read the entire dialogue, so I will read the final scene, but it takes away a bit of its significance because the dialogue kind of builds the two characters. It is a taxi driver and a passenger, and the passenger is a stranger to the taxi driver. The only thing you know about the passenger is her name, and the taxi driver is an Egyptian Alexandrian taxi driver. The setting is Alexandria on the Corniche, and they are driving at a very late hour of the day, and we don't know why, and we don't know the destination. And this is the final part. So I can't know anything about you. The driver put an elbow out on the open window and continued driving along the seaside. They sat in silence for quite a while. Then, Aliona leaned across to sits next to her and tried to open the window with the old lever. It wouldn't budge for some reason. Maybe because the old yellow and black car hadn't been fixed in years. She tried again, more vigorously. The driver glanced over his shoulder to see what she was doing laying across the back seat so strangely. Then he looked away, embarrassed. "Your coat, Anissa." The driver frowned, slowly accelerated his car, and rolled up his window. Eliona sat back up and looked down at her bare thighs, her legs, her wired corset that held up her back and perked up her breasts. She quickly, in 2 movements, pulled the sides of her thick, long jacket with one hand, the left side, then the right side. Then she sat there, wrapped up and quiet for a while, looking at her rings on her hand, rearranging them, her hands shaking ever so slightly. "Just here, please." She held up a hand and pointed to the end of the road, finally. The driver remained silent. At the end of the roadway was a beautiful villa, with a front yard that smelled of citrus fruit and trees in its gateway. "Drive to the door, please." The driver didn't know how he felt about this beautiful driveway. He never goes to this part of the city. He drove up to the door and waited for Eliona to step out and pay him. She sat. "Lady, you're here." "I know." She smiled for the first time, pulled out a mirror, and reapplied her cheap melting lipstick. "I would like to leave." The driver was not looking at her, but tapping the bottom of his steering wheel and focusing on a small piece of string from the seam of his pants that was loose. "You meet someone different every day, don't you?" "Yes, and what do you mean by that?" "That's what I do. I'm a driver. I drive people." "That's what I do as well. It's like we live the same lives." She scooted closer to the door, held out her hand to him, and unwrapped a wad of cash. "This is a lot. I'll be making much more tonight." And with that, she got out of the car, still wrapped like a candy in her thick jacket, and walked up the stairs to the door. A man dressed like a butler opened it without her knocking. The driver tucked his head to the level of the car ceiling to catch a glimpse of the uproar inside the building. He heard a record player and maybe some live music as well. As soon as his passenger had entered, she was greeted by a strange man who led her somewhere by the waist. The cab driver drove down the driveway again and headed out. He lit his cigarette and rolled down his window, looking at the sea. "Those are the kind of people who like you." He spoke to the faraway dark waters of Alexandria, that could do nothing more but stare back blankly. He inhaled the smoke from his cigarette and exhaled it mockingly out his window. "I hate this city."
Again, if we would, a quick hand for all 3 of our We're proud of you and proud of everybody who submitted to the award. It takes a lot of courage to submit your work to the judgment of strangers, so keep at it and keep doing it. We actually, I know that a lot of people have class at 2, but there's a little bit of time, and Randa has very generously agreed to to answer any questions that you might have about her work and her photography. There's still time maybe for a few questions if anybody wanted to ask something of her. And Randa, you can do it sitting down or come up here, whatever. There's a microphone here. We can go. Okay.
Thank you, Randa, for this wonderful talk, which is really autobiographical in relation to photography. I just want to ask you, why do you always do photographs in black and white, and you hardly do them in colors?
No, I changed. I mean, at one point, the chemicals and the films are not available for analog camera anymore. Very difficult to bring. And when digital cameras came out, I tried to first, continue doing analog black and white, but then it's not very smart to fight technology, and I decided to shift to digital color. But I only showed 2 images here, but my last 15 years of work is in color.
And why is your preference for black and white?
It used to be my preference because first I developed and printed my own work, and I knew that there was one more layer besides choosing where I go and the pictures I take. Working in the darkroom, you also create a mood with how dark or how contrasty. So it was, and I felt black and white made you concentrate more on the, like, colors for me were scary because you could be looking at colors and not looking at the picture. But then, and when I changed to digital, I decided to, I only took pictures when I started playing with color in the same way I played in the mood of colors again.
Thank you for your talk. I would have like several questions about your artistic work. About your artistic work. Do you feel that you pose the same view when you are photographing and when you are writing? Or is it like, does it change the way you view the subject?
I take pictures. I mean, writing, I never thought of myself as a writer. I am a photographer for the last 35 years. I started writing as a way of therapy because I lived in Lebanon and then I was not able to go back for 25 years, and when I came back I had all these Pandora's boxes open, and the only thing that helped me was writing about them. And then, so for me, writing was therapy. Once it's on paper, like as if you can step a step after that. And I used to do Facebook posts. It's only my friends push me that this is a book. But, so I mean, I'm a photographer that writes sometimes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, that you ended the talk by saying you resist photography. I just wanted to ask if you could expand a bit more on like, how do you resist that? What's your definition of resistance and how do you feel like you resist that?
This might, you know, because of them, I mean, at least the pictures when they are there, your identity is, I mean, when you have memory, this is how you form your identity. So I take pictures to keep memory. I mean, now there's a whole city that vanished, but then I do this with making pictures because I freeze that moment that there were people, that there was history, there was a culture. So this, I mean, I'm sure people resist in many different ways.
This is how I resist. Thank you.
And by documenting people, you know, because history books also always, and there's an official story, but you don't see the story from the people who live, and I document people in their ordinary daily life, and I feel that's also a sort of resistance. And then there's another story that is there too.
Randa, thank you. Telling us that many of the photos have been lost from the archive of newspapers and I'm sure now in WhatsApp makes me wonder if there's any plan or any repository where photographers like yourself might make sure that their work survives. And if not, what should we do about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are some people now doing like websites, collecting documents and pictures, and it has been, I mean, and more ones after when the work on Randa started. But then I also get, I'm an old person. It's good to have websites, but I also like to keep the physical things. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, like in Egypt, for example, there is no museum of photography or an archive. I don't know of any in the Arab countries if there is like a museum of photography.
I just learned that Google is starting an arts and culture program here where NGOs and entities are invited to use their technology. Maybe it was would be something you could explore.
You know, Randa and everybody else, we have a collection of a photographer, Leo
That's
something,
Leo,
yeah, at AUC Rare Books Library and so on. It's very interesting and so on. My other question is, most photographers turn to making documentaries. Have you?
No, I mean,
No.
the photographers do a lot of other things.
Yeah, but they move from photography, still photography, to make some documentary. Have you thought of doing that?
I mean, I do moving pictures.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's great, but I like the still picture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another talent, and I'm not, of course, some of them do. But I do documentaries with like stories, meaning like putting different pictures together, making a story of something. But I did not do moving images, except the birthday parties.
I noticed in the pictures there's a contrast between some of them are very close-up individual pictures, and the others are to the masses. Like there is a large percent, like a large mass of people in them. How do you feel about the contrast, and which type of photography do you prefer?
I like taking pictures of people. I do less landscapes and architecture, although I do some of that. So I do people, but I mean, I get close to people. For me, I like to meet people and learn their stories. And yeah, I'm a photographer at the same time, so it's great. I make a picture as well. But I mean, these images I just chose to. Now I'm working on my archives, and I'm supposed to maybe make a book with 200 images, but I have 40,000 images that can be published. So it's always hard to choose what to show. I here chose a little bit of what I was talking about, including Dr. Azul's picture. Did you see your picture? So no, I like people. If they're, but being sometimes for a story to show, like you can take I like to take portraits for sure, but then to show where people live, or if it was a big demonstration, then you need to show a different establishing shot to show where you are.
First of all, thank you very much for your efforts and the obviously lovely, amazing photos. I just have a question about, you told us about the instance in your life where there was, you went to a local area, and that local area, the people who are living there lived there for generations and did not formally, let's say, with the government, yeah, and they were planning to turn it into a resort and to evict them and that. What, I don't know if maybe I missed that, but what did you do, or what did you do that sort of saved this area from because you said in the end they didn't actually make the resort. So what changed their mind? What efforts did you make to change that? And did photography have anything to do with how they changed?
I mean, it's not photography. While doing my photography project, documenting their life and going there almost every day, and also with Painter Muhammad Abla, who was doing sketches of their life, and there were people living there, but because they are poor people, they have not registered their houses. So what we did is we collected signatures of the names of families that live there and submitted them that these people exist. It's not an empty island. So luckily that worked. Then they told them that they will give them something like 2 months to document, to register their lands and whatever, pay the fees of registering. So it was cancelled. But before it looked like it's an empty island, but it wasn't empty. So what we did was collecting their, making names of all the people who lived there.
Thank you very much.
I just love this image, and I'm curious to know the story behind it. So can you share?
It's a very stereotypical image, but I took one of them.
It's the story of the woman behind it.
It's a woman from Gaza in '94 who was carrying the key to her house in Jaffa from '48. I don't know what they were carrying.
Thank you to our winners and those who submitted, and thank you to our jury with Dr. Mona and the especially for Randa Shaath for enlightening us this afternoon.